Poor Jimmy. True, it was a terrible night for women, children, and for the hundreds of thousands of hard-working immigrants who cut his lawn.
It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go. For healthcare.
You know what? If I ever cry on TV, it'll be because Maroon 5 put out a new song. But that's it!
You know things are serious when Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld join forces, think the Avengers, but armed with sarcasm instead of superpowers. And their target this time is not Thanos but Jimmy Kimmel's overinflated ego. When late-night smug runs headfirst into primetime snark, the result is a verbal beatdown so brutal Kimmel might need a laugh track just to cope. Forget untouchable, this roast goes nuclear. And yes, the meltdown is as public as it is hilariously painful. Stick around, this one's worth the burn.
A day when I was on the primetime of Fox and you were on the primetime of CNN, a couple of hours after our shows ended, late night comics would come on and they occasionally would make us laugh, Piers. I mean, occasionally they understood that they were in the game of making everyone laugh. As you know, they've abandoned that game now and they're just political operatives out there. Colbert, Kimmel, Seth Meyers, who I struggle to even mention that guy's name. He's such an absolute, I can't stand him. But anyway, it's just my thought.
Jimmy Kimmel is what you get when your TV glitches from comedy to a lecture by a middle school principal, only with less charm and twice the self-righteousness. If smugness were a product, Jimmy would be the billion-dollar brand, his face on the label, clutching a soy latte, shooting judgmental looks at anyone who's ever voted to the right of Bernie Sanders.
All right, so a Republican has won an election, and you know what that means. Jimmy Carter has to stay alive for 4 more years. It's also time for liberals to tell themselves that they're still right about everything and their hysteria and delusions of persecution are perfectly normal. Yet right now, they're melting like that stick of butter Joy Behar keeps between her thighs to prevent chafing. Case in point, last night, all the other late-night hosts threw a hissy fit. It's too bad Tim Waltz is still grieving, or he could send them all a sack of industrial.
This is the same guy who built his early career on bikini contests and beer pong, now rebranding himself as the moral gatekeeper of democracy, bravely standing between America and whatever GOP bogeyman haunts his imagination. But this isn't growth, it's the showbiz equivalent of a washed-up boy band member going solo with an acoustic guitar and a vegan cookbook. Night after night he rises from the comedy graveyard to deliver monologues that land somewhere between a lecture and a lukewarm joke written with all the bite of a spoon and the force of a damp paper towel. He's not telling jokes anymore, he's doing moral cartwheels while scanning the audience for claptrap, that awkward applause meant to affirm, not amuse. Jimmy Kimmel, the man who didn't just lose his edge but turned late night into a live-action Tumblr post.
We took a look at some of their reactions to the news of Trump's win. Look at this.
Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great. Yeah, me neither.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go. For healthcare, for our climate. It was a terrible night for poor people, for our allies in...
Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld didn't just criticize him, they blew the doors off his echo chamber, held up a mirror, and delivered the hard truth. This is what happens when comedy is replaced by hashtags and every punchline gets sanitized by an HR committee. It's no longer satire, it's outrage and bubble wrap packaged with a laugh track. He's less a comedian now and more like a Facebook ant with a primetime budget and a team of writers too scared to be funny. It's a sad reflection of a world where humor is carefully curated and stripped of its edge, leaving behind a bland version of what once sparked genuine laughter. In this sanitized landscape, true comedians struggle to find their voice, while the masses settle for the safe, predictable punchlines that do little to challenge or provoke thought.
Late night host Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air after taking the summer off. He's missed a lot. Kimmel says if you're not vaccinated, you shouldn't get a hospital ICU bed. But I'm not sure if Jimmy was being sincere because he wasn't crying. Anyway, it's just funny hearing someone say I see you who nobody actually sees. Look, I don't want to suggest that Kimmel's show has become boring and predictable, but last night during the taping,
Greg Gutfeld, a man who's funnier in 5 unscripted seconds than Jimmy Kimmel is in 5 scripted hours, absolutely dismantled him. He didn't even have to aim high. Why reach for a ladder when the guy's already tripped over his own fading relevance? Watching Gutfeld tear into Kimmel was like watching someone slowly deflate a blow-up clown with a toothpick, swift, effortless, and deeply satisfying. Jimmy Kimmel fancies himself clever because he throws around irony, but irony only lands when the audience doesn't feel like they're being graded afterward. Every Kimmel segment feels like a group project where he did none of the work, yet insists on doing the final presentation loudly, badly, and with graphs that make zero sense. Then there's Megyn Kelly, surgical, no frills, no flinching, just cold hard facts and a long overdue reality check delivered with pinpoint precision that made Jimmy look like he wandered onto the wrong soundstage. She didn't need to shout or use gimmicks, she simply reminded everyone that Jimmy Kimmel isn't brave, bold, or insightful. He's just an aging host trying to cosplay as America's conscience, all while cashing Disney checks and pretending to be anti-establishment from a stage lit by LED floors.
It's tens and tens of millions. It could be as much as 100 million. I have no idea. You know how much Tucker's video cost? Nothing. You know how much Jimmy Kimmel, how many people he gets tuning in on an average night? Just last week, his average was, in the overall, meaning all viewers, 1.5 million. In the key demo, 236,000. Tucker would have been embarrassed to pull that on any night he was on the Fox News channel. That's what they're getting now. Tucker's numbers were 3 times what Jimmy Kimmel gets. And Tucker's little basement video that he did from clearly like his cabin that he broadcasts out of Maine in literally has 21 million views. Okay, 21 million views. Whereas, as I point out, on ABC, a massive network that comes into your home for free, that you have to make no effort to find, at best, Jimmy Kimmel can get 1.5 million. He needs to have a little self-perspective before going out there and hurling these insults.
This is the same guy who once thought reading mean tweets was groundbreaking comedy. The same guy who tearfully narrated policy debates was convinced it was his civic duty. The one who confused political posturing for punchlines and now sits on stage every night wrapped in performative concern, as if waiting for America to thank him for feeling on our behalf. Let's talk about his so-called transformation, what his team calls growth. Once upon a time, Jimmy rocked leather jackets, cracked beer jokes, and pulled pranks. Now he wears moral superiority like a bathrobe, lecturing anyone who doesn't buy into his particular brand of coastal sanctimony. He's not edgy or rebellious, he's a substitute teacher who caught one kid drawing Trump and won't stop turning it into a lecture on teachable moments. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld delivers comedy like a swift kick to hypocrisy. No kid gloves, no moral posturing, just sharp, classic satire that reminds you what late night used to be before it became an audition tape for MSNBC guest spots. While Kimmel monologues to an empty echo chamber filled only with the sound of his own virtue, Gutfeld actually engages, actually jokes, and, unforgivably for Jimmy, actually gets laughs. And speaking of laughs, can we talk about how few Jimmy actually earns anymore? His audience sounds like they're clapping out of obligation, as if someone just flashed a cue card that says, "Pretend he's funny." He's delivering jokes to people who came for therapy, not comedy, and even the therapy is bad. Imagine getting lectured by the guy who once wore a gorilla suit to interview bikini models.
poor Jimmy. True, it was a terrible night for women, children, and for the hundreds of thousands of hard-working immigrants who cut his lawn.
It was a night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for justice, for free speech. It was a terrible night for poor people, for the middle class, for seniors who rely on Social Security, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO, for the truth and democracy and decency. And it was a terrible night for everyone who voted against him. And guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.
But it's not even the politics that's the issue. It's that Jimmy Kimmel isn't dangerous. He's not challenging anyone. He's safe, polished, and corporate-approved rebellion. Like a punk band that signs with Disney and then releases a soft rock album about recycling. He thinks he's punching up, but really he's just throwing predictable punches into the void, waiting for Twitter likes. Megyn Kelly nailed it with sniper-like precision. Jimmy's whole act is built on a lie. The idea that he is somehow brave for mocking people he dislikes from $1 million studio bubble backed by media applause. That's not bravery. It's performance anxiety disguised as activism. It's what happens when someone mistakes volume for impact. And the fake emotion, oh, the tears. Jimmy cries more on air than a Netflix documentary about abandoned dogs. Every policy change, every tragedy, every headline, there he is, blinking back tears, waiting for the applause to wash over his perfectly rehearsed vulnerability. You could set your watch by it. The man's tear ducts clearly have a PR agent.
It was the 96th Academy Awards show, and while you might have missed it, there was one clear winner. No, not Oppenheimer. It was sanctimonious leftists for their lead role in pretending they are better than you. Several people shared in this achievement. Winner number one, Jimmy Kimmel. For the fourth time, Kimmel hosted the Oscars before an adoring crowd of Hollywood stars who laughed and curried favor with the man who wore blackface so many times he's second only to Justin Trudeau in his fondness for the practice. Yes, some of the very same celebrities who wanted you to believe they were horrified after yours truly said in 2018 that people used to don dark makeup in order to imitate well-known black celebrities and it wasn't a big deal, absolutely ate up the performance by...
Greg Gutfeld summed it up perfectly. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't need a writer's room, he needs an intervention. Someone to remind him that just because he feels something doesn't mean the rest of us have to watch it in HD, complete with dramatic music and a teleprompter. His whole show has turned into a therapy session for his own unresolved guilt, and we're stuck watching it like it's some mandatory part of our cable package. Meanwhile, as Jimmy tries to outwoke the internet, his audience keeps shrinking. Turns out people don't want to be scolded by a millionaire with a god complex and a comedic style stuck in reverse. His ratings are falling faster than his punchlines land. If this keeps up, he'll be doing 5-minute sets at Whole Foods, sandwiched between organic hummus samples and climate change petitions. Even his writers look exhausted. The jokes hit with all the impact of a balloon tap. You can almost hear the sigh in the studio every time the same tired Republicans are bad bit plays like a reheated Hot Pocket, no spice, no bite, just the same condescending chuckle, like he's explaining democracy to toddlers. And Megyn Kelly, she's not here for the performance. She's here for accountability. She called out the quiet truth: Jimmy Kimmel isn't controversial, he's commercialized dissent. He's in rebellion with a ratings clause. The kid who tattles on the other kids at recess and then gives a speech about unity during the school assembly.
Remember when Johnny Carson cried like a baby over Ronald Reagan getting elected? Yeah, neither do I. And you know why he didn't? Because his wife didn't keep his balls in a Tupperware container next to a box of tofu burgers. But the killer phrase was at the end when Kimmel said, "You just don't realize it." Because you see, he's smarter than you, and he needs you to know that. And his ego can't bear that there's someone out there more famous and more influential than him. I got news for you, Kimmel. The last time you mattered, Bruce Jenner still had a penis.
Even the way Jimmy delivers his jokes has changed. He leans into the camera like he's about to reveal the ending of The Sixth Sense, whispering punchlines like they're state secrets, hoping the seriousness will make up for the lack of humor. Spoiler, it doesn't. It just makes us feel like we accidentally tuned into a hostage video. And when he's not lecturing us, he's pandering hard, trying desperately to prove he's in touch with the common people, all while broadcasting from a studio that costs more per day than the average American makes in a year. He wants to be relatable, but you can't be relatable when your idea of hardship is losing an Emmy to Stephen Colbert. Greg Gutfeld knows the game inside and out. He doesn't pander, he provokes. That's what real comedy does, it challenges the audience. Kimmel, on the other hand, wraps every joke in a cozy blanket of "don't get mad at me, I'm one of the good ones." That's not comedy, that's corporate risk management in a blazer. So here we are watching Jimmy Kimmel slowly fade into the background, a once funny guy who now spends more time virtue signaling than joke telling. He's not dangerous. He's not insightful. He's not even particularly entertaining. He's just there like a screensaver you forgot to turn off, smiling, blinking, and gently reminding you that he used to be cool.
Jimmy's career peaked with busty girls on trampolines. Now the only boob we see is him. He once co-hosted The Man Show. Now he's sobbing like he just watched Steel Magnolias 3 days into...
Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld didn't destroy Jimmy Kimmel. He's been doing that all on his own, one monologue at a time. All they did was hold up a mirror, and the reflection wasn't pretty. It looked tired, predictable, and about 2 punchlines away from total irrelevance. But hey, maybe there's still hope. Maybe Jimmy can stage a comeback, ditch the moralizing, find a fresh angle, and actually remember what it means to be funny. Or maybe, just maybe, he'll cry about it instead. And if history is any guide, that cry might just be the season finale of the Jimmy Kimmel Show, streaming now on every channel that mistakes earnestness for entertainment. At this point Kimmel isn't just phoning it in, he's texting it in from a Malibu wine bar, sipping a Chardonnay labeled Tears of the Common Man. His idea of connecting with real people is posting selfies with celebrities who've never been within 50 feet of a grocery store. Meanwhile, his punchlines are so stale they should come vacuum sealed. And yet he struts across the stage like he just cured comedy and invented empathy. Spoiler alert, he didn't. He just slapped a sad face on sarcasm and called it political commentary.
Face costumes included his oft-repeated bit as basketball star Karl Malone.
Now, Karl Malone never seen no flying saucer himself, but if he do, that's gonna be a spooky time.
And let's not forget Oprah in a fat suit.
15 minutes a day is all you need to get your heart rate up to where...
Please, Miss Oprah, you're crushing my... Sorry, Miss Oprah.
Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld didn't uncover some hidden scandal, they simply pointed out the obvious: Jimmy Kimmel has become the TV equivalent of kale. Supposedly good for you but miserable to consume. Like kale, he's praised mostly by people who feel obligated to pretend they like him because admitting otherwise might make them seem uninformed. But here's the real kicker, even the laughs he still gets mostly come from folks who aren't actually laughing, they're just agreeing. And that's not comedy. That's confirmation bias with a drumroll. The last time Kimmel made anyone genuinely laugh without immediately apologizing was probably during the Bush administration. Meanwhile, Gutfeld racks up ratings with real jokes, and Kelly calls out the Emperor's new joke cards. Jimmy, he's still hosting his nightly TED Talk with a side of forced chuckles. If that's the future of late night, we might as well tuck it in, kiss it on the forehead, and let it drift off into a soft, self-congratulatory coma. Nighty-night, Jimmy. Try not to cry too loud. Some of us are still laughing, just not at your show.
Last 2 weeks, they had the Kennedy Center honors the other night where Joe Biden couldn't say Dionne Warwick. He kept calling her Diane, and he didn't know who Barry Gibb was. He kept calling him Billy. You know who else was honored? At the Kennedy Center. You know who else? Billy Crystal. Just FYI, do you know who once opened up the Academy Awards in full blackface?
Oh,
Billy
yeah.
Crystal. Billy Crystal. And do you know who's going to be hosting the Academy Awards this year? Jimmy Kimmel. Do you know who's worn blackface repeatedly and spoken inner city sort of urban accent saying she needs to darn those socks? Jimmy Kimmel as Oprah, as a fat, black-faced, darning socks Oprah. Now, if you are
At the end of the day, comedy isn't about safe feelings or carefully curated outrage. It's about truth, challenge, and having the guts to make people uncomfortable while making them laugh. Somewhere between the celebrity interviews and moral lectures, Jimmy Kimmel forgot that. Now he's stuck playing the same tired role, the self-appointed guardian of woke wrapped in a velvet glove of humorless pity. Meanwhile, real voices, sharp, unapologetic, and honest, are carving out spaces where laughter actually means something. So here's to moving beyond recycled punchlines and empty tears. The stage is bigger than Jimmy's pity party.